Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We have a lot to get into today, including the Pittsburgh Penguins, their first week of business, and Ryan Reaves, who's emerged as a cult figure already in just 3 games into the season. We'll talk about Pitt and their quarterback quandary now and what happened yesterday in Syracuse. Pitt now is in danger of not becoming bowl eligible. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers, and one of the most lopsided games you will see at home, and something we've never seen from Ben Roethlisberger. And here is your panel left to right on your television screen. We have Will Graves from the Associated Press, far left, Ron Cook, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and Cook and Pony Show on the Fan, and we have Chris Muller with that vibrant jacket once again from Starkey and Muller, 93.7 The Fan, from 2 to 6 every day. So let's get right into it. Ben Roethlisberger, 5 interceptions. First one was a good play by Jalen Ramsey, but certainly Ben all this season, in my book, has not been on his game. A lot of people are wondering, could this be potentially what happens when you are a 35-year-old quarterback, and take Brady out of the equation because he's doing something that's never been done before. But Ron Cook, when you see his play now, and the fact he's taken a lot of hits over time, is this just the residual effect of all of those hits, and maybe his play is just not going to be what it once was?
Well, I mean, Father Time beats everyone. I'm not quite ready to go there yet. I can't defend his play today when you throw 5 interceptions, 2 that are returned for touchdowns. It's got to fall on the quarterback. I'm with you. I don't think he's had a good year by any stretch. He could get away with the first 4 games by saying, hey, we won 3 of them. I didn't turn the ball over. I still see some zip on his passes, but they seem to be high. Too many of them are high. I'm not quite ready to say he is done yet, but I don't think he's had a good 5 games either, Bob.
I think it's pretty obvious he's entering the real back 9 of his career, and he's entering the part of his career where if it's not necessarily a situation where you write him off, it's more reasonable to expect games, maybe not this bad, but subpar outings based on what we're used to crop up more often. And I think he cited, Ron, with you guys on one of his shows on The Fan, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, it might have even been in the locker room, that, hey, I've still got my arm strength, I have overthrown guys. And that's true, but then his accuracy is so off that I wonder if the arm strength is still there because he's forcing a little extra on it, and it's hurting him as far as putting the ball in spots where it's supposed to be. I think that's what you've seen from this guy more than anything else, and more than you usually see, is the ball just not being where it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be there.
You know, what I thought was sort of odd after the game, he was asked about his mechanics, and he said, I'm no guru. Dude, you've been in the league 14 years. I think you kind of know when you're throwing the ball the right way or not. I'm not going to bury the guy, but I do think that maybe and I was certainly part of this, we overestimated, hey, they're getting Bryant back. Hey, they're getting, Bell's, they're going to get the Killer Bees are healthy all year. They're going to score 30 points a game. And let's remember, their run at the end of last year was Le'Veon Bell. Today they played the worst run defense in the NFL, and Le'Veon Bell ran the ball 15 times. And they thought they could rely on the quarterback. It didn't happen. I'm not going to say it's over for him because I don't think it is. He's earned the right to sort of, if he has to go out the Willie Mays style, where he's stumbling down first base at some point in the next few years, he's earned that right. But you've got to be troubled. He's got more touchdowns than picks 5 games in. His completion percentage is 61%, which is the lowest since 2009. Those are troubling numbers if I'm the Steelers.
Were you troubled with his comments? I know, Will, you tweeted about this. We had the comments on our post-game show basically saying, he did not, I don't know if he was being facetious or not. I couldn't really tell. What did you guys make of his comments? Almost, questioning himself, whether or not he has anything.
I don't know. I mean, I viewed it as facetious. I mean, he didn't laugh after he said it, but what player is going to come out publicly and say, maybe I don't have it anymore, and mean it in a moment like that? I think that was probably more directed at the question asker than anything. That was facetious was the word that I used, but I certainly think you've got to be searching at this point. I talked to Martavis Bryant after the game. I said, are you and Ben still working? Or have they taken you out of the Jags take you out of going deep? He said, look, I was open a few times. The guy didn't look for me. What I think he might be doing is just looking for Brown too much. Both
yeah,
pick
I think
sixes
he was
to Brown.
sarcastic with that comment. I heard that too. Maybe I don't have it anymore. I think he was just feeling sorry for himself a little bit. He took this one hard. He's a proud guy, doesn't like to throw 5 interceptions, although I don't know too many quarterbacks who do. I don't think he doubts himself. I sense he'll come out firing in Kansas City. Now, maybe for good or bad. Who knows this Sunday? But I don't sense a lack of confidence with him. I don't think he's gotten a lot of help. I don't think the high-priced offensive line has played very well all year. Le'Veon had the one good game against Baltimore. Antonio's been great. Other than that, I think Martavis Bryant's been a huge disappointment.
Yeah, I think that he and Bryant haven't hooked up nearly as regularly as I thought they would on deep balls specifically. And I don't think it's for lack of want to. It's just not happening. And, you know, the narrative is going to come out because I've already seen it. And I hope it doesn't get much in the way of traction that, oh, he's still looking to throw the ball to Antonio Brown too much. Well, that's where you're getting results. 10 catches for 157 yards. If he's forcing him the ball and looking too much there, it still seems to be working for pretty productive gains. I think this is a situation where Ron just hit it on the head, too. You've got a guy that isn't the improvisational kind of wizard that he used to be because he's slowing down a little. It's just natural. That line was really good for long stretches last year, and I think they've let him down in large measure. I really do. I think that part of the overthrows, part of the inaccuracy is a general lack of comfort behind them. And then we talk about how they only ran Bell, 15 times or whatever against the worst rush defense in the league. The times they ran him, I certainly didn't see, like, in between the tackles, a lot of major holes being open and a lot of linemen getting second level. I think that line's been a massive disappointment.
You get way behind and you got to throw that.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
That takes that element out of it.
I look back at the Baltimore game last week. I saw the same thing. Not many holes, but what I saw was a commitment to do it. That's my question when it comes to the game plan. Where was the commitment to take on the last place run defense as opposed to throwing the ball 55 times against the team that had the numbers against the pass? That didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, I agree.
If there are no holes, you just keep pounding.
I didn't see many holes there today, though.
But you didn't last week either.
Yeah,
I thought there were more
you saw a few more last week than you did today.
Not
and
at
then
the
you get
beginning
way
of the
behind.
game.
You got to throw.
I don't know. I mean,
way behind.
to Chris's point about forcing the ball to AB, one of their problems right now, red zone, right? They had the ball down there in the first half on third down. What did they do? He threw a jump ball to the back corner of the end zone. That was just, there was no chance. They did not try to run the ball effectively. And so both pick sixes were intended for Brown. The first one tipped at the line. The second one was a bad pass. I mean, if it wasn't going to be picked off, it was going to be incomplete. So I do think they are feeding AB. He is looking for AB too much. I mean, then when the other guys who had,
but it's working.
Juju
He's got 10
and
catches for
Martavis,
Juju Martavis.
Look, I think they need to get rid of any play that has Martavis Bryant running east-west across the field and just take it out of the playbook entirely.
Yeah,
the guy is good at really good at one
7,
thing.
You know?
Have him do that until it works. And Pop, I think you're right. I don't think they stuck with it enough. They were winning the game. Let's remember, they were winning the game 9-7 with 6 minutes left to go in the third quarter.
Yeah.
2 pick sixes later, and then they're in trouble. So, I mean, there was plenty of time to work the run. It wasn't like they spent the whole game trying to catch up. I mean, I am with you. They should have run the ball more. Le'Veon's the guy who says, when I get the ball more often, I'm more effective. And I don't count those little short passes as effective way of sort of getting the run game going.
One thing I think we all know, Ben Roethlisberger is a very competitive person. I would not be surprised at all next week if he comes up and lights it up in Kansas City, their next opponent. It's going to get tougher for the Steelers based on their schedule, and that'll be something we'll be watching. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some other issues like the Penguins' first week, like pitch struggles, all of that coming up right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, so don't go away. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.